competition because we have a loaded program for you. When it comes to countries that are vying to be on the podium for the team competition, 4 of the 5 that the experts anticipate being in the running for medals are taking part in this afternoon's program. My name is Mitch Peacock. Joining us this afternoon, Elfie Schlegel, a member of a Pan Am Team Gold victor back in 1979, representing Canada, and ready to go this afternoon as you get a look at the lay of the land here inside the Toronto Coliseum. The teams getting in position, the technical officials getting into position as well. And Elfie, this is an exciting time. These athletes have worked some time to get ready for this.
You know what, it's always an exciting time, Mitch, for these athletes because it's such a big year. This is the stepping stone to what is yet to come for the rest of the season. And for many of these athletes, they've been here before. This is old hat. But for some youngsters, this could possibly mean their Olympic Games. This is the biggest event of their lives.
And you get a look at what we're in for in rotation number 1. You see some of the powerhouse nations, including the United States, expected to be the ones standing at the top of the podium when all is said and done.
Well, the U.S. for sure are favored to win this competition in the team event, not only for men but for women as well. And they get to start on what could be seen as the favorite apparatus to start a men's gymnastic competition, and that is the floor exercise. They have a lot of talent on this team.
The United States does begin on the floor and then progresses through the standard Olympic rotation, you could say, as we get a look at all of the apparatus these athletes will deal with. There are 6 apparatus for the men. We'll have 4 with the ladies tomorrow. There's the American team as it gets set to begin on the floor. Floor, pommel horse, rings, vault, parallel bars, and high bars, the way that things will progress for these athletes. The Americans in that traditional starting position on the floor.
And one thing you should know is only 4 athletes will compete in today's competition with the best 3 scores that count. So you do have one routine that you can drop. You hope that that typically is your first man up who sets the table for you, and the scores escalate, so to speak, as the remaining gymnasts take to the floor. So 3 scores will count on each apparatus to determine the team champion.
There's a lot going on today. Not only will we determine the podium and orders of finish for the team competition by the end of the night, but also we're identifying the finalists for the all-around competition, which will come up on Monday, and for the event finals, which will come up over the course of Tuesday and Wednesday. 2 athletes from each country with the potential to advance to those competitions.
Yeah, it's an important day. So much that happens on day 1 of gymnastics. And as you mentioned, the team event, but equally as important, men are trying to qualify to that individual all-around competition where only 2 athletes per country are allowed to compete. As well, on the final day of competition that we'll see here, at gymnastics will be the event finals where we will see the best 8 specialists on each apparatus.
You saw a moment ago, one of the groups involves single athletes from a couple of different countries, and not everybody here is represented by a full team.
No, and that's the way the Pan American Games work. You do have athletes who are specialists. You have a lot of countries that just simply cannot fill a team.
And you also have specialists, as we talked about, an opportunity for athletes to contribute to their team's performance.
And we won't be surprised if there are some athletes that only compete on a couple of apparatus for that reason to make the event finals.
And we get set to go. The competition about to get underway. Athlete number 154 is Donnell Wittenberg of the United States. And he is the U.S. vault champion. But this is a real rising star. A lot of people are watching to see what Donnell Wittenberg can do.
I had a chance to watch Donnell at the American Cup, which is an international event that takes place every year in the United States. It represents international athletes that come to the U.S. for this competition. He was fantastic. He was leading the way, and it wasn't until the final apparatus that he dropped in the standings. But you're right, he is one of the bright stars for the United States, and what they're looking for right now from this young man: set the table for us.
And let's see if he can.
Beautiful start to his routine. Obviously, what you're seeing so far, Mitch, is a lot of acrobatic skills, and that's primarily what men's floor exercise is made up of, along with strength elements like this. they'll show off a little flexibility. But today's standards, most of the gymnasts that I have spoken with said, boy, you have to pack in a lot of acrobatic tumbling passes to be at the top of the world.
And in just 70 seconds.
This should be the final tumbling pass. It's a great start for the United States.
Wittenberg of the United States looking to set a tone for his team, and you can see the response from the coaches and from his teammate. They are pleased with what Donnell Wittenberg was able to do. He was part of that U.S. team that won bronze at the World Championship last year, so he's got some experience despite his young age.
And this is exactly what they asked for from this young man. Just go out there, do what you're capable of doing, rely on your training, put your feet to that ground, no falls, no major mistakes, set up a good score for the U.S. because I'll tell you what, some of the other athletes who are yet to come have some fantastic routines ahead.
It's got to feel good for Donnell to be able to get out, get on the floor, get that first one out of the way, begin the competition, and feel like, okay, I'm ready.
Absolutely, and he will be someone that we will see on all the apparatus. He is one of the all-around gymnasts.
United States with two all-around gymnasts here today. Steve McCulloch, the other. We'll see a lot of them through the 6 apparatus. Donnell Wittenberg with a 14.900.
And that is a great start. That's a great start, Mitch.
He's playing it cool, but I think you saw a little bit of a, all right, from Donnell there. Steve Legendre of the United States, second up for his team.
And they will be looking for an even bigger score from this man. Stephen Legendre says he loves adrenaline. Well, this is exactly where he needs to have a little bit of that. He can be a superstar on this event. He has some difficulty that will just wow you.
A vault silver medalist at the World Championships 2 years ago.
That was a little bit of a tricky landing there. Not only was Steve a vault finalist, but on this exercise, floor exercise, he has been a finalist at many World Championships. I was watching the U.S. team the other day in training, and they were having a little bit of trouble with some of their landings, getting used to a different piece of apparatus. They do not train on this in the U.S.
Yeah, part of the preparation period, part of the podium training for these athletes prior to the start of competition was getting out here and getting a feel for each of the apparatus, because they do vary in manufacturer from location to location.
Oh, and that is a fall, of course, and in gymnastics, what that means is a full point off your score.
And you wonder for Steve Legendre if some of those earlier little steps and catches to find his balance at the end of passes might have been in the back of his mind as he set up for that final pass.
Well, Steve is not going to be happy with this exercise. He really prides himself on being a floor specialist. I'm sure he was looking even further ahead, and you can see that little extra rebound on the dismount. The judges want to see you plant those feet to the carpet and not move and not sit down.
He's a team player. He's rooting on Paul Ruggieri, who's set to go next for the United States on the floor. And you've got to do that, right? You've got to stand up and kind of tuck it away so your teammates don't see that disappointment and frustration. We go to the pommel horse now. We pick up with the Canadian team in action. That's Hugh Smith. He was 15th in the all-around at last year's Pan Am Championship, held not far from here in Mississauga, Ontario.
And Hugh will be one of the all-arounders for Canada. And as a side note, there are only 3 athletes from Canada competing on pommel horse. That is all they have
and that's
in this
important
competition.
because only 3 scores count. So everybody's got to put up a number for the Canadian team to give themselves an opportunity to compete on a team level.
And this is Hughes' 3rd appearance at a Pan American Games. He was so excited about this one, he said it would be the most special.
And you can tell by the way he finished there, very pleased with the way that went, and gets the crowd going here too at the Toronto Coliseum. So Hugh Smith of the host nation with a performance that he is pleased with.
And he did his job for Canada, not faltering, doing the best that he could. He said earlier when he found out that the games were being held in Canada, he said, I had to do everything in my power to be a member of this team.
And he's here. It's not easy to get here, not only in terms of qualifying, but staying healthy and being available for these sorts of competitions. The Canadian team has had to deal with some injuries coming in. So Hugh Smith awaiting the mark for his opening effort. Definite buzz in the crowd for the first competitor from the host nation.
Canadian men were looking forward to competing home, hoping that they could feed off the crowd.
We'll get you back to the floor now.
And there
Steve Legendre, 13.750, and you talked about the deduction for the fall at the end.
And that E score you can see right
jumps
there.
Jumps out at you, doesn't it?
6.8, and that's exactly where all those scores came off. It starts out of a perfect 10, and he just, too many mistakes.
Our first look at the parallel bars. And this is Arthur Mariano of Brazil. Arthur 21st in the all-around at last year's World Championship.
So he has some experience being on the world stage. And when I looked at some of the results from last year's Pan American Championships that were held in Toronto, Brazil was 3rd best on this apparatus.
Brazil certainly among the nations expected to push for the podium at the end of the day in the team competition.
And of course, this is a team that is getting very excited about the idea of Rio, but it's a long way away, believe me. They still have to qualify to compete in their own country for the Olympic Games.
This is not a qualifying event for those Olympic Games. That'll take place later in the year, at least in part. The World Championship, but a strong finish there from Arthur Mariano. And Arthur Mariano with a 14.350.
And that helps.
Certainly does. And that's just getting them started. Now we check in with USA competitor 152, Sam McCulloch. All kinds of international experience. The standout really of this U.S. team in terms of experience and success on the international stage.
Sam, of course, is an Olympian from 2012, was a rising star back then and has completed so much in his career since then. A superstar on the NCAA circuit as well.
Team and all-around champion NCAA-wise in 2014. Was a vault finalist 3 years ago at those Olympics in London. And now a little pre-routine rehearsal for Sam.
Always visualizing their routines in their head. They're almost ready to go for Sam. He's a team player, I'll have to say that. He told me earlier in the practice sessions, he said, we will be professional. We're expecting to win.
So with that pressure in mind, here goes Sam McCulloch for the United States.
Remember, his teammate, Steve Legendre, had a fall. They'd like to discount that score. Sam was one of the athletes that was having a little bit of difficulty with his tumbling passes the other day. Seems to have gotten it under control.
Just that fraction more comfortable on the landings than we saw from Steve Legendre earlier. Sam looking a little bit more sturdy. Covering the four corners of the surface. Or even spectacular.
Mesdames et messieurs, à la suite de cette première partie des compétitions, les États-Unis d'Amérique sont en tête avec un total de 267, suivi du Brésil, de la Colombie et du Canada. Ahora son los Estados Unidos el primer luego, entonces Brasil, Colombia y Canadá en cuarta posición.
He has packed in a lot of difficulty on this exercise. Oh!
And just unable to finish it off.
I think his knees actually touched. If they did, that is a fall.
Not what you'd expect from Sam McCulloch, who looked very good throughout. Just didn't finish it off the way he wanted to. Subdivision number 1, 6 rotations. And the teams completing those rotations. And some of them sending a clear-cut message they have intentions of being on the podium at the end of the day. To parallel bars, Colombia, Josimar Calvo, all-around gold medalist at last year's Pan Am Championship. He won gold at the Pan Am Games in Guadalajara 4 years ago. He's just 17 then.
He's a fantastic gymnast. Even if his teammates aren't up quite to the level that he is, every judge in this arena knows exactly what his talent and skill level is. He's already made quite a name for himself on the international stage.
Josimar Calvo.
This is one of his highest scoring events, and already you can see the execution of the way he performs. I watched him in practice this week. He's so exact in his movements. Fantastic, very original skill off the end of the parallel bars. That was cool. I like that one.
We've seen everyone off the side, but Josimar Calvo finishes off the end.
Just taking this event in a different direction.
Literally.
Being very innovative, but look at these skills, beautifully executed.
And nearly to the very end of the apparatus there. Josimar Calvo of Colombia, 15-7. Look at the difficulty, 6.8. And an 8.9 for execution. That's a big, big score for Colombia and their efforts to be successful as a team. I think they will be very pleased with the way they capped things off in that 6th apparatus. They might push themselves just a little further up those standings. So a good effort there from Calvo and a good effort from Colombia to finish in rotation 6, but you talked about it, Elfie. Some teams knew certain apparatus would favor them. If they did their job, they'd get their points, and this is where it leaves us at the end of it. Subdivision 1 complete. United States on top with Brazil behind them. Then it's Colombia moving to that 3rd spot ahead of the Canadian.
And Colombia leaving the best apparatus for last and the best athlete in that last position. Very strong exercises.
Very good performance there. We've been informed that the United States is involved in an inquiry into the performance of Marvin Kimball. So we may have some updated information on Kimball's performance on the high bar.
And that would really affect his overall score in terms of event finals. It certainly won't have an effect in the team. In terms of them sitting in placement, them being in the 1st spot. That's correct.
You can see how close Canada was to getting inside that top 3 this afternoon. Just a shade behind Colombia, who finished so strongly.
I think the Canadians, Mitch, have to be very pleased with their efforts in coming in today.
Marvin Kimball's score on the high bar will be adjusted, and we're just awaiting for confirmation as to what the adjustment would be. So 267.750 showing for the United States. But as Alfie pointed out, no change in positioning. United States on top, and comfortably so. And that's what you anticipated coming into the day, that they had the team to finish on top.
And we talked about Colombia having not had the performance at last year's World Championships and being a stronger contender for this event. But if you look at the scoring difference between Canada, 3rd and 4th place, Scott Morgan in the fall on floor exercise, that's a full point. And who knows, it could have made the difference, perhaps.
It's such a tough thing to identify one individual performance
You
for
can't
one
do
point
that.
because
Absolutely.
you've got a team, you've got 6 rotations, you've got so many little things along the way. It's very, very tough to try and pinpoint what the difference is between a place and another place. But there's your updated numbers now. 267.750 for the United States, who lead comfortably over Brazil. Colombia moves into the 3rd spot, Canada in the 4th position, and then you see Puerto Rico some distance behind in 5th. So an entertaining afternoon of gymnastics going in. A lot of people anticipating seeing some good performances. They were certainly delivered on a team level and an individual level.
I was certainly impressed with the audience and their level of education and how much they appreciated and cheered for each one of these countries. And it has played out somewhat as we expected it to play out, with the United States on top and countries like Colombia really doing their part.